Hello everyone. Today I thought I'd share a short video on Tuskegee Airmen from my days way back, 1986. They've been in the movies and what have you, but so my experience isn't, I'm not going to talk about fighter planes and all the stuff. You can go watch the movies for that. I, as a young lieutenant, was assigned one weekend to VIP duty, where I was going to have to escort a VIP who was visiting the Air Force Museum. There was going to be like 16 or 19 of them. And it was one of those volunteer, but you're being told things. I don't know if people still do that anymore, but back in the day, that was something that happened. And as a part of that weekend, I was assigned for this Tuskegee Airman. And to be totally honest, I really knew very little. I had an awareness that it was a black airman from World War II, but knew almost nothing about it. And when I understood I was going to be his driver for the weekend, and the actual escort officer was going to be another lieutenant, and a black lieutenant, and I was going to be the white driver, kind of a reverse driving Miss Daisy if we're going to use an antiquated model. I was actually pretty happy because I did not want to have to deal with trying to look all proper for general or something like that. So I'm like, a civilian. This is going to be good. And I really wasn't thinking I was going to enjoy the weekend that much. And then I started driving him, and of course, wherever he went, I also, excuse me, out here with the puppies, was with them as well. So they went into the Air Force Museum, and I went with them. And over time, I would hear him talk and share some of his stories, and none of them were war stories. He just talked about people he met and what have you. It was actually the first time I ever went to a Southern Baptist black church. I went there with him that weekend, and man, that was a really, frankly, great experience. And I can't share with you all the details that he told me. We didn't have recorders or that sort of stuff, but it was a great weekend. And I can't relate to what went on during the war or the trials he had to go through. I imagine they were really terrible. But I also don't remember him focused on that. I remember a very balanced, pleasant, just all around nice guy. And by the end of that weekend, I knew what a Tuskegee Airman was, and I just had a ton of respect for him. If I had to name one of the 5 people that I've met just kind of out of the blue, where I think back and I'm like, boy, I'm glad I met that person, he absolutely would be one of them. And the saddest thing is I can't tell you his name. It's more just impressions and feelings. And I think I share this with you because sometimes when I'm talking about climate videos, or on the flip side of it, talking puppies, right? There's the happy, there's the somewhat depressing. You can lose sight of the fact that good news doesn't always happen where you are expecting it. I know I didn't expect to have much fun that weekend, or to look back on it so fondly. And it's also that to get there, and I know in his case, he had trials that I can't even imagine. And I learned a lot about some of my own perspectives on black-white relationships. In my house, when I was growing up, it really wasn't discussed much. And it's not to say that my mother wasn't someone who liked to talk about nationalities. My mother, which was a great woman, by the way. I was very fortunate to have a mother as good as her. She loved to talk about nationalities, and she did talk in a very discriminatory way, but it was about the English, because she was Irish, 100% Irish. And as I've mentioned, I've actually recently become an Irish dual citizen with the U.S. And just like I didn't understand a lot of what blacks in the country went through, it wasn't until I recently went back to Ireland and I learned about what black and tan meant to an Irishman, that I began to understand why some of those feelings run so deep. And in my work career, I had an experience, I would say I was probably pretty good about avoiding discrimination, but I was also pretty ignorant until, as a senior manager in this one company that was doing logistics work, I was tasked with setting up 10 plants and getting the quality managers for them. And in the process of doing that hiring, I hired 10 people, blacks, Hispanics, and I remember one of the plant managers coming to me and praising my department. And I'm like, well, I'm glad to hear they're doing well. He's like, oh, but not only do they do good work, but they satisfy my quotas. And I think that was the first time I realized just the magnitude of the issues people had to face, because yeah, frankly, I think he was happiest that because one of my people worked in his plant and was a manager and a black woman, I was checking a couple of boxes for him. And that makes me more aware from ever thereon about the issues that all people feel. And like I said, Irish history is something I invite you all learn about. The potato famine. People have tough backgrounds. So, all right, with that, I will get back to a climate video. I think I wanted to get this out of the way because my next one's going to be about South Africa, and that's not a real happy subject these days. So, take care all.